All right, I'm going to call this meeting for Executive and Finance Committee to order for August 29th, 2024. Councilor Poindexter, can you do the invocation, please?
Yes. Skionathan, Ogidod Galanidahe, Alskuskistaliskajistagawi. Thank you, Father, for this time and fellowship together, Lord. Thank you for helping us all come together under one roof to serve the Cherokee people, Father, and continue to guide us and direct us in our communities and help us to lead with your wisdom and knowledge that we may make decisions for the betterment of our people, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Cody. Shelley, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Joshua Sam.
Here.
Kevin Easley. Here. Sasha Black Fox Qualls. Danny Callison. Here. Julia Coates. Joe Deere. Mike Dobbins. Here. Lisa Hall. Here. Johnny Kidwell. Daryl Legg. Here. Dora Petzkowski. Here. Cody Poindexter.
Honey.
Mike Shambaugh. Melvina Shotpouch. E.O. Smith. Condessa Teehee. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Shelley. All right, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the July 15, 2024 regular session meeting? All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, motion passes. All right, let's jump into reports. First, we have the CEO, Chuck Garrett, with CMB. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and report on July's financial performance, but also have with me two of my colleagues to talk about one of our initiatives for FY24, which was the development of an enterprise risk management program, one that is designed to make sure that we grow strategically, but also prudently, and that we are having full visibility into the business so that we are not overlooking risks that might be sneaking up on us, or risks that we need to develop mitigation plans for. So we'll have more about that in just a moment, but let me first tackle the July financial reports, which you will have some in front of you, I suppose. It was a rough month. July was a rough month for us across the business. One of our largest components of our Cherokee Federal business was sort of the saving grace, if you will. It was the business unit that performed the strongest. It's the largest, which is good. If you're going to have one of your units perform well, you want the largest one performing well. And they performed very well. It was strong over budget, strong over year. What we're seeing is, in the gaming market, we are seeing the economy impact our customer. There's just no doubt about it. We've talked about it along the way. I've sort of been predicting this for most of the year, candidly, but with gas prices, grocery prices, just the wallet is not as big as it was. We're seeing people back off a little bit, and some properties are being affected more than others, but I think generally it's safe to say that the broader economy is impacting our business. We're in budget season at the moment, so we're trying to be aggressive because we like to hold ourselves to a high standard, but we also have to be realistic. When we're looking at establishing budgets that are forecasting the next year, and we do a lot of reforecast. So we're doing budgets, but then we'll do some forecasting if there are major events along the way that impact the economy. Such as an election. There are some unknowns out here, some variables that do affect us from an interest rate perspective. You have an interest rate cut, and that has some very positive impact on people's 401k and other sources of liquid capital liquidity, and so we'll factoring all that in and hopefully being quite thoughtful about our approach. But let me open it up just to questions related to the business as it is and what we're seeing in the marketplace.
All right, do we have any questions for Mr. Garrett? Yep.
It's more as an observation. When the people I talk to from Sequoia County go to Gold Strike, they really like it down there. It seems like when some of the people go that way, they have a tendency to stay there and they like it.
Well, you're right. We've had some really strong performance out of Gold Strike, and it's part of our strategy overall was to look at our gaming business, and to the extent that there is an opportunity to diversify geographically, that represented that opportunity. That Mid-South market is different than Northeast Oklahoma. Now they're still having some of the national economic headwinds, but the performance is there. The players love what we're doing. Our people are doing there. So it's been a good stabilizing influence on our portfolio. While we're talking about gaming outside of Oklahoma, really pleased to report today is the third day, and when I reported to you all during Tribal Council a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that there was a hearing, a special master hearing. This is a person that's appointed by the Arkansas Supreme Court to hear the challenges to the initiative petition, collection of signatures, and the ballot question itself. And I indicated that we felt really good about some of our arguments and objections to the signature collection and also the vagueness of the ballot question itself. So yesterday, in the second day of the hearing, the Attorney General testified before the magistrate, or the special master, that he felt like he and the Secretary of State of Arkansas erred in approving the inclusion of those signatures that had been collected. That's significant. When you have the Attorney General go before the court and say, gee, I followed precedent, but I didn't follow the law. And I stand here to correct myself. And I stand here to suggest that the Secretary of State, well-intentioned and, again, having followed precedent, but not the letter of the law. Within a couple hours, they adjourned for the day. It was kind of a little bit of a very important moment for us, I think, and also had the defense scrambling. Feeling very good about that. The master doesn't provide a report to the Arkansas Supreme Court until September, later in September, I think it's the 13th. And so we'll see about their ultimate recommendation. But, in the meantime, as I mentioned last time we were together, the campaign team, the strategy, the media buy, all of that is well underway. So either way, I feel quite good about it. But it goes to that point of that geographic diversity, and it is a different customer. We share customers. Roland, for example, and Russellville will share some customers, but there is also draw from Little Rock that don't make it all the way to Roland. So, I think it is it's a diversification is a risk mitigant, and one of the things that and one of the programs that we instituted this year was an enterprise risk management program, and really that is to identify various metrics and identify different risks across your enterprise. So you have your different businesses, and we have different risks that threaten each of the businesses. Some are shared, but some are unique. And we went through the process of establishing metrics. So above this, we felt good. Below that, we felt good. But if it was here, so it was kind of one of these green, yellow, red things. And so you can look at the dashboard and understand where you need to focus energy and attention. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to introduce Ben Blosh, who you all know, but also Ms. Kelly Reed, who have stood up this program, have implemented it, and have managed it. And I think, you'll see that it is a sign of a maturing business, a business that is not just measuring itself by aggressive growth. That's, of course, important to meet the needs of the shareholder. But you also have to be prudent. You have to be thoughtful about the care with which you're doing that. So, may I?
Yes.
All right.
Well, before we let them do it, we have any questions about Pope County or anything? Speaker?
If we do, if they do shoot that down, the ballot,
Mhm.
the signatures,
Microphone.
I just need to scoot up. If they do shoot that down, the signatures, and they're not allowed, or will they be allowed to do it again?
It would be in another election cycle. There's no prohibition against that. What will happen as a practical matter, by November, I would expect us to have the permits that we're waiting on right now, to be moving some dirt, to have momentum going, and to start building a casino. And as a practical matter, when that happens, just the voters themselves are going to say enough. And, let's get our tax dollars, let's get our jobs. So technically, yes, practically, no.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll run out of things to quit suing us about.
Yeah, I
That'd be
think,
nice.
I agree.
All right, thanks, sir.
You certainly.
Johnny?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Garrett, thank you for being here today. And, before we move on to Mr. Blosh over there and the great information he's going to provide, and while we're talking about the casinos in my district, or the one in which we're building, I do want to say, and we've had this conversation about a week ago with Mr. Blosh as well. It's good to see the numbers that are coming out of Gold Strike down there, and people need to realize that is unrestricted funds, and we get to do with that as we see fit, and we know how the revenue games are played, and we know that over time, because that real estate deal that we did down there is kind of front loaded with interest, like a mortgage.
Right.
We're going to gradually make more and more and more money from that place, and I know there were a lot of naysayers back in the day, 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago or so. But it's nice to see that the decision that the board made, the decisions that were made around that is proving to be beneficial financially to the Cherokee Nation, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Appreciate that comment.
All right, any other questions? Oh, Doc?
Chuck, is there an established timeline on the Bartlesville property?
No, largely because it's sort of out of our hand. It is now, with the Department of Interior has an application from us that goes through a process that includes some input from neighbors and third parties that are, in some way or another feel impacted. So that can be, I've seen it be multiple years, and I've seen it expedited. I think this Tahlequah is a good example where that was expedited. I believe that was within a year. So, it's a pretty wide range. We're going to continue to do, market studies. We're seeing, the impact of the Osage casinos on other casinos of ours. So it's sort of a bit of a chess game, but it's also a bureaucratic game. So that's the piece you don't really have a lot of control over.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, any other questions before we move on? All right.
Okay, thank you. Well, you all have become familiar with Ben. Ben is Ben Blosh is our Chief Investment Officer for the company, so he's involved in a wide range of investment analysis and decisions related to acquisitions, but also has a lot of input on strategy, and has been someone I've relied on greatly to help us build a more resilient company, a company that has, more protections around it, so that we really are managing in a more strategic way. So I asked Ben to stand up an enterprise risk manager. Wisely, he went and found someone smarter than he is, and with more experience in the area. And so we really did get someone that is an expert in this area. And so Ben will introduce Kelly as well. But thank you, and I'll just turn it over.
Thank you, Chuck. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to be here as always. It's good to see you all again. At its heart, an enterprise risk management program is designed to build a systematic process for us to identify, analyze, and then if possible, mitigate or avoid risks. As with any business, there are risks inherent in what we do. Macroeconomic risks, Chuck mentioned earlier, cybersecurity risks, talent management risks, reputational risks. And the intent of the program is to prepare us for when those risks manifest into situations which could hinder our ability to grow or negatively impact our financial results. So I brought with me here Kelly Reed. Kelly Reed is the manager of our ERM program. She's going to speak in a little more detail as to how it works on a practical level. Kelly brings with her 22 years of experience from Bank of Oklahoma. She not only led the ERM department at a multi-billion-dollar bank, but she was instrumental in standing that function up at the bank. So she was the ideal candidate for us, and I couldn't be happier to introduce you all to her today. So Kelly, please.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Chuck, for those nice words. Good afternoon, Chairman, Councilors. It is truly an honor to be here today, so I appreciate the invite and to have an opportunity to speak with you about enterprise risk management. Would you mind moving to the next slide, please? There is a presentation for those of you that can see it. We'll try to go through that just a little bit here. So Chuck did a fantastic job of explaining what risk management is, and we'll talk about that just a little bit. But just to nail that home a little bit more, as we continue to grow, as our businesses grow and we continue to have additional goals and objectives and strategies that we need to meet, it's imperative to have a robust and a solid risk management program. What we chose to do for Cherokee Nation businesses is to have a top-down approach, which is a more holistic approach. We will be strategically managing risk based upon goals and objectives, the financials, things that we think are important for us to sustain where we are. And the other thing that's a little bit different about most ERM programs that's more traditional, being that this is an enterprise, we will be having a holistic view, as I mentioned. We'll be working with all of the business units. All business units contribute to the success of Cherokee Nation businesses. And what we're trying to do is to identify risks, manage those risks, assess those risks, be able to give the leadership team data and information to make really informed risk management decisions. Stay nimble enough to as our environment changes, as our world changes, that we're able to address that real quickly. And also to have a process that's repeatable, that we can continue to change and move and address risk emerging or those that are just inherent, as Ben mentioned, to our organization always. Next slide. So I talked a little bit there about why it's important. So you know what ERM is, or Enterprise Risk Management, and you now it's why is it so important? And Chuck mentioned that a little bit as well. The only thing that I'll add to that great presentation that the two of them gave is that it's not just that we identify risk, right? I think of risk as also as opportunities. when you have a risk, that could be an opportunity for us to grow. And so we need to actually look at that and to see where we can leverage that to our best benefit as well. Also, having this strategic alignment, having all the business units working together, having the support of Ben and Chuck, and this holistic view and the reporting that Chuck alluded to, this will allow us to have some enhanced resilience, right? We'll be able to easily detect and to maybe stop some operational disruptions. We'll be able to promote a cultural shift. We have great leaders at C&B, of course, and of course we want to drill that culture down. Everyone is part of enterprise risk management. That's why it's called enterprise, and so we want to move that culture as well. This way it encourages everyone to not only just be proactive, but also encourages everyone to take that lead and take that accountability. So that's how we have some enhanced resilience. So how do we build it? That's where I come in, right? How do we build it? So I do want to say something. I know I thanked Chuck and Ben, but one of the things my colleagues in the enterprise risk discipline always ask is if you have champions, do you have good support? And I know I've said this to them privately, and I'd like to say it publicly, that the two of them are really good risk champions, and every good ERM program needs that. That leadership at the top is really important for that, and has been just impactful to help me work with the leadership team to build this program. So let's start. We're going to do this in a 5-phase process. And so the phase 1, we've done quite a bit of work so far. We've introduced ourselves to the leadership team and to the audit committee. We've worked with the leadership team to develop that report that Chuck mentioned. That particular report has up to 20 different key risk indicators and key performance indicators within that report. We'll dig into that a little bit on the next slide. But that gives us really monthly indicators as to what we need to be looking at, as Chuck mentioned, based on our appetite or thresholds, what it is to make us successful. Also, Chuck rallied the troops, and we have already started our Enterprise Risk Leadership Meeting. That's a monthly meeting that we have to not only talk about the risk status report and all those key risk indicators, but we talk about things within each of the business units that's going on, and sometimes the conversations get pretty lively there, which is great. A methodology, we collaborated with our other areas such as audit and assurance, as well as data analytics, to come up with a standardized risk and control methodology. So as we are looking at these risk and controls, that we have some consistency as to how we rate them for the organization. We've started phase 2. We've completed everything in phase 1, by the way. Phase 2, we've started that. We have the leadership team assigned over 15 what we call risk owner delegates. Those are leaders, managers, SMEs that are embedded within the business units that have been working with ERM to identify and rate those key risks. We have a little bit to go, but we've identified well over 80 risks thus far that have been rated that we can start digging into and helping the leadership team make some decisions. Of course, with any good enterprise risk management program, there's governance, and of course, we're going to make sure that we have that not just with the enterprise risk leadership meeting, not just with reporting to the audit and risk and GR meeting, but also the board as required. So you may say, well, we have risks, so what are we going to do with them? Well, we want to see how the current leadership team and how the current business units are managing those risks today. We want to look at that. We want to dissect that. We want to have them rate that. We want to get to a point to where we can see, based upon those key risks, where they stand in reality. That will give us good information to bring back to Chuck and the team to say, here's where we stand today. Does that meet our goals? Does that meet our objectives? Does that meet where we want to be? Are you happy with that? And if not, do we need to do additional mitigation? Do we need to do additional work? So the leadership team will then have an opportunity to what we call treat the risk or respond to those risks. So we haven't finished phase 3 yet, but we're trucking right along on that. And then, of course, we're going to do some additional work as we continue to mature the program and offer value to the organization. Next slide. So Chuck mentioned that risk status report. And so these are the indicators that we are monitoring on a on a monthly basis. Some people are monitoring probably monthly, but we report on them on a monthly basis. So when we think about our financials, when we think about our goals, the leadership team was really quick to be able to identify what types of risk could put those goals and strategies and objectives in jeopardy. So of course, that means we're looking at financial risk. We're looking at macroeconomic risk, cyber, talent management. We're looking at a bucket of risk, and how we chose to look at that first is looking at some key indicators. So we have individuals across the organization that are reporting into ERM on a monthly basis so that we can see, based upon where we want to be, if they're red, yellow, and green, and how to address that. Next slide. So this slide here is just to basically say that this is going to be the life cycle of an ERM program. It's going to be continuous, right? We need to constantly look at risk. We need to constantly look at opportunities. We need to constantly look at not just existing but emerging risks. We need to constantly analyze those. We need to develop strategies. We need to monitor, and we need to report. And that's going to be a continual thing as we continue to try and grow and make sure that Cherokee Nation Businesses has the information, the data, the analytics in order to continue to grow and be strong and address risk as we should. Any questions? It's a lot there, I think, but yes.
Does this calculate into the risk ID when it comes to insurance? Risk ID number?
When he says risk ID number? Make sure I understand what you,
Help us on the risk ID number.
The risk ID number, when you're doing a contract, when it comes to safety and risk.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
yeah.
The
Okay.
9-digit.
Yeah.
The 9-digit number.
in my old world,
Come on,
every
Chuck,
risk had a
it's
risk
the
ID.
federal number.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, have you seen that list of 80? Because they all have a risk ID.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So insurance is mostly called in my discipline risk transfer, right?
Okay.
And so when we talk about bringing these risks and back to Chuck and the team and how they treat it, we have the option to either respond, we have the option to either transfer it, and that transfer could be in the form of an insurance contract. That transfer could be in the form of outsourcing that. We even have the option of accepting that risk if we feel that it's within a parameters or a threshold that Chuck is comfortable with. We want to be very careful on how we spend our resources. We want to be good stewards to the company. Is the juice worth the squeeze? If we have a particular risk that we're managing well, that we don't have to put a lot of money into, then we're good.
Let me just take a stab at that too, because it also has another context of federal contracting, and I don't know if that's kind of what you.
That's what I was leaning towards.
Well, Counselor Deere has a background in federal contract. So there are certain things that we monitor and report on that, like, some of the NIST schedules that we report on that have application that can be then conveyed as part of our application for a contract, for example. So yes, there's some overlap. There are also some independent risk assessments
Yeah.
on the federal side.
That's why I was wondering how much of this percentage-wise is in that risk ID involvement.
Yeah, there's probably just a minor overlap, because
Okay.
we have very specific, detailed assessments that go on for our contracting.
Right. Okay. That's what I was just
Yeah.
clarifying.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As
Thanks,
I
Kelly.
learn more about the business, I know, talking about CPARs and 8As and things like that, so we'll get there. You're welcome. Any other questions
Do we
for
have
me?
any other questions?
It's okay. I know risk isn't the most fun topic, so that's okay. All right.
That was a great report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, let's see here. Did we have any other questions for CMB in any capacity there? All right, we'll move on down. Treasurer Janice Taylor with the financial report and treasurer's report.
We are inundating you all with information right here on this holiday weekend. I'm happy to be here today. I have missed the last couple of meetings for various reasons, and so I'm glad to be back home. I do have, you've got my report that shows what everybody's been doing in the office, but there are a couple of things that I did want to be sure to touch on in addition to that. We are in the process of getting ready to renovate the dorms at Sequoia High School. There's a ton of armoires, guest chairs, bed frames. If any of you have anything like a summer camp or a domestic violence shelter or something like that, we can fix you up. So go back to your communities and talk to them about those type of things, because we've got a lot of it. It's good stuff, and we would love to rehome it somewhere that could do some good somewhere across the nation. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up. I will see you guys here Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. to start our budget hearings. I'm excited to, I'm sure you guys have already been through it, but it's always a good time to look at what Cherokee Nation does with their money. The majority of it goes into healthcare and education, the things that directly serve our citizens, and that is something that you all have to be very proud of. I did bring some, well, first of all, are there any questions about my report before I move on into the guests that I have brought with me today?
Do we have any questions for Treasurer?
Okay.
Good to go.
So I have brought with me Jamie Cole, our controller, and then I also have Joel and Jake. I want all three of you to go ahead and come up at least to start. And Emily, these are our auditors. Forvis Mathers is our audit firm, and they do our audit every year. And I just want to impress upon you the amount of scrutiny that all of our money goes through. As you know, the majority of our funds are federal funds. And so we have audits and reviews by the agencies. I would almost say monthly, somebody is looking at their grant or the funds that they have sent us. And so we have that. Then we have our audit that I passed out. That is our comprehensive audit that includes everything that we do. It shows CMB rolls up in there and some of the other things that we do. That one is on our on the website. Anybody can look at that. And then we also have our single audit, which is the audit of federal funds. And Joel is going to talk a little bit about the audit that you have, and then also some kind of historical statistics regarding our federal funds and our single audit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. Jamie may have something that he wants to address, and I'm going to turn it over to the audit team.
Thank you, Treasurer, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, Council. I do encourage you to review the FY23 ACFR in front of you. Please pay special attention to the statistical section in the back of the book. I know normally folks don't look in the back of the book, but it's got some trend analysis. We provide 10 years of analysis in there, and it really shows the growth of the Cherokee Nation. So it's good information in that as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jamie.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for allowing us to be here. I'm Joel Hauser. I'm a partner with Forvis Mazars out of our Tulsa office, and we brought a couple of the crew members. These are the actual boots on the ground individuals that do most of the work. But what I wanted to do is kind of put in, first of all, give you the results of the audit, and then put it into a little perspective of what we go through and what the finance team has to go through, and really how special of a finance team you guys have. But overall, the audit, we issue an unmodified or clean opinion on the purple book, essentially. So we audit the financial statements that are included in here, go through them in pretty good detail along with the single audit that Ms. Taylor mentioned. On the single audit side, I'm also pleased to report that we don't have any findings or anything like that needs to be reported. So great news to the team. Nothing really to report. What we're required to do is if we find a finding, essentially is what we call that, it can be classified into one of three levels: material weakness, significant deficiency, or just a deficiency. We're required by the standards to report anything that would be a material weakness or a significant deficiency to the governance body, which great news that you don't have any, but that's a pretty rare feat in and of itself of an agency and an organization the size of the nation. So I do want to press upon that. But I was going to pause there to see if anybody had any questions or anything specifically on the audit. I wasn't going to go through the financial statements because about as fun as talking about risk is financial statements. So I wasn't going to go into detail for that for you guys, but did want to give a little bit of background of what an external audit really encompasses and how much the nation has grown. So I'll jump in there and.
Speaker?
You just became our hero for not doing what they did. No, I'd like to say, you know, it's a great testament to our treasurer because, you know, year after year, we don't have the discrepancies. And with the amount of money, you know, that we deal with, that is saying something. So congratulations for your hard work, and we so thank you so much for what you're doing for us. That's a big accomplishment.
Yep. I agree, Speaker. Any other questions before he jumps in? All right.
Okay, just a little bit of background and some perspective. So this here is an ACFR, so an Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. I believe there may be another, but this is the only, Cherokee Nation is the only tribal nation in the country that actually puts this together. This is above and beyond what is required to put together. So great job there just to start with. Secondly, our audit process really begins in September of every year. It takes about 9 months to get through everything, and we probably spend 5,000 to 6,000 hours throughout the course of the year at C&B and then at the Nation going through everything. And I can tell you by the end of 6,000 hours of people in their offices, they're ready for us to go. And I really can't blame them for that because we do ask a lot of questions while we're in there. So it starts at that point. We start at C&B and do the audits of those entities. They get a separate issuance on their opinions, which I believe are included in some of the reports that you have. Then we dig into the nation's audit, usually in December, January timeframe, and we go through the financial statements, and then we end on the single audit of the federal programs. And in addition to us being in there causing problems and asking questions, they have to go through the federal regulators. It's not as commonly known, but governments are highly regulated, lots of different agencies to talk to and go through, and sometimes we repeat the same information and go through that point. So we consider we're a side job to their main job, and so they do a part-time job throughout the year as well as the primary job. But throughout those 5,000 to 6,000 hours, the other thing really wanted to mention and congratulate the team on is this year, everybody knows all the ARPA money, all of the COVID-related money that has gone through the system and is going through the system. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can say that is the biggest mess I have ever seen in my life. Rules have changed more often than I've ever even seen them change before. So kudos to the teams that are having to go through that, through the accounting programs, because they are significant. And with that, the Nation was one of 16, maybe, what the Treasury Department went through desk reviews. So they hired other accounting firms to come in and basically do a single audit on top of every other audit they had. The Nation was selected one of the 16 state local governments, and there were no findings that came from that report. That was the only Nation for sure, but that was about the only government that went through without a finding related to their CARES and ARPA money. So even outside of the validation of us not having any findings, the federal government Treasury Department had none to report as well. So the kudos to the team for that. I know they worked really hard on that part of it. And the other thing to mention too, and I know Jamie mentioned it in the book, outside of the statistical section that he referenced reviewing, there's a section in here called Management's Discussion and Analysis, and it really goes through a narrative. It's a combination of narrative and numbers at the very beginning of this. A lot of information, 200 pages. If you don't do anything else, there's probably about 12 to 15 pages in that MD&A. You can read through that and get a high-level synopsis of what happened at the Nation this year. So encourage everybody to do that. On top of that, and I'll kind of end with this, but growth of the Nation. So we went back and did a little bit of an analysis with the federal dollars that have been spent by the Nation over the past 7 years. And just to put in perspective of all the federal money that has come in that the finance team has had to account for, and in 2016, there was about $315 million of federal expenditures that the nation had spent from grants. And it was pretty flat, consistent for about 10 years before that. And then COVID hit, and at the end of 2021, so 5 years later, the nation spent about $1.5 billion of COVID-related money. So roughly 5 times more than they've spent before. And as you can probably imagine, they didn't get 5 times as many people to process that information, so they had to work a lot of extra hard hours to get those audited. And even at the end of last year, the nation still spent over $800 million in federal money. So more than twice, 3 times what has historically happened. And that puts a huge strain on accounting departments, finance departments. There's a lot of burnout right now. So not that I can recruit, but if anybody, accounting is a great career to get into right now because everybody's wanting to get out of it. So if you have any, that's a great program, but wanted to put that into perspective because that has been a huge task for those finance teams. So congratulations, clean audit. And again, we appreciate you guys and the nation. And if I can answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
All right. Do we have any questions? All right. Great report. We appreciate it.
Yep, thank you guys. And have a great holiday.
You too.
Do you want to say anything? Jake is boots on the ground in the office, lives here for about 4 months during the audit. So I was just going to give him the opportunity. You may have seen him at the Eclipse party. I mean, that's how much a part of he just gets used to being here. So do you want to address him?
I might stay the weekend. I haven't decided yet. Am I allowed to trash talk this day?
Probably not, but you can
I will say, just to emphasize the fact of how amazing it is that the Cherokee Nation does not have any findings, most of these single audit reports are publicly available on the State of Oklahoma's state auditors and inspectors website. If you want to go look at the State of Oklahoma's last single audit, you might take a look how many findings they had.
Leave it at that.
Yep.
Emily? Okay. All right. I thank you for indulging us. They make our department better, and I stand here every time I can and brag about the staff that we've got in financial resources, but I don't think you realize how unusual what they do here is. I mean, it is phenomenal, their dedication, their devotion to being good stewards of the money and making sure that it's done right and that there won't be a finding on their watch. So I appreciate every one of them. I appreciate you all for indulging me and giving me this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I know that's a great achievement. I know it's a consistent achievement for our tribe, and we appreciate you and your whole team. All right, we got career services employment. Oh, it doesn't look like Diane. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon, everybody. I didn't bring any friends with me today, so I apologize.
No.
So, you guys have the report. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you may have, or I'll bring those back to Diane to follow back up with. So.
All right, do we got any questions to send on? All right, great report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
All right, let's jump down to the Commerce Department with Miss Anna Knight.
You better get in here.
That was Canaan's fault. He was out there distracting me. Daryl? Okay, you guys have a copy of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I think you know we're having a little holiday this weekend, so everything's on track and the grounds are looking great. Everyone pulled together and we're going to have a great holiday.
Melvana?
Do they have any time schedule or events? Do you know anywhere
We do. It's on there. It is online.
Okay.
But if you need a printed copy, we can get a printed copy for you as well.
Can you send one to Gail?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure can.
All right.
All right, Kendessa?
I received a couple of messages this morning from individuals who are serving as vendors at this year's Cherokee National Holiday event. And they had some concerns about the early implementation of the executive order on single-use plastics.
Right.
And their concerns were not necessarily that it was an early implementation. Their concerns were really about kind of lack of guidelines, that I guess some of the vendors are trying to figure out how they can affordably acquire plastics that are not single-use, that are reusable. Are those allowable? Are they required to use, you know, paper, glass? And they were saying that there was, I guess when the vendors were kind of comparing notes, that they had kind of received some conflicting information. So I just kind of wanted to communicate that to you in your office, so that way you might maybe visit with the individuals who are providing that information to make sure that they're all on the same page. Because I understand that we all want to support sustainability and be responsible stewards of our environment. And part of that is stopping the use of single-use plastics. And I think the vendors are just kind of looking maybe for a little bit more uniformity in the guidance on how they do that.
Okay, we'll follow up on that. There is only one person that is the contact for the vendors, so I will visit with him, and we'll make sure they have the information that they need.
Okay, I appreciate that. And again, I know this is a challenging issue because, you know, as Cherokee Nation moves into, you know, stopping the use of single-use plastics, everybody has a lot of questions, and I understand it's a little bit more complex than it appears on the surface. So I appreciate you and your staff, and looking forward to a great holiday. Thank you for the time, Chair.
Thank you.
Joe?
Hey, Anna.
Hey.
I had an interesting question, so I thought I'd ask you. Usually you ask, how high can your SBA loans go to? Somebody asked me, how low can they go to, because they're really wanting a small business. So they were trying to figure out where they were in that gray area to apply or not to apply.
We've made small business loans for $300.
Okay,
We don't have a minimum.
okay. And I also want to just ask you a question, so you could be on here longer than Diane usually is.
Well, thank you. That's my goal this year.
Yeah. All right, you have a good holiday. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
All right, Speaker?
If our policies change on the single-use bottles, what are we going to do? You know, in the past, if there was emergency or something like that, and we needed a pallet of water, or a school needed a pallet of water. I called the other day, and they said we weren't doing that anymore with the single use, so I couldn't get a pallet of water. But how are we going to address that? Do you
At
know?
the holiday?
No, just everyday emergency stuff for council.
That would be a question for either the Secretary of Natural Resources or the Chief's office. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Kanan? Stop talking.
See, he's
Did
distracting,
you answer,
isn't
did you
he?
hear a speaker's question?
No, what was it, Speaker? I'm sorry.
Single-use plastic.
What are we going to do if, as tribal councilman, we need to get, say, a pallet of water for an emergency or something like that? And right now, I called the other day, and they're not doing that right now. So how are we going to address that problem if it comes up?
So we've been referring people to Love's Bottling over in Muskogee, who can fill those. Now, they're not the OCO branded ones. Those are limited, but they do carry the Dasani. Did you talk with Love's?
I'm talking about what are we going to do? Are we no longer going to make that happen for people? I mean, because we used to call in, we need a pallet, we got a pallet.
Yeah.
Are we going to do that to Love's, or I mean, how are we going to handle when the problem comes up for each of us
Yeah.
and we need it for our communities?
Yeah, through emergency management, because of that executive order, we'll start handling all of that and ordering it in bulk.
Okay, well, I called emergency management the other day, and then they said they don't do that anymore. So that's why I'm asking. So if we're going to, get that back going again, that's fine, but, it could become a problem at any time.
Absolutely, and that's a good reminder. I'll talk with emergency management, and so we're all on the same page.
Okay, all right, thanks, sir.
All right. We have any other questions for Anna?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's jump over to consent items. Has everyone had a chance to review the consent items? Have any questions or concerns on them? Jody, you got anything for us? No, all right. All right, we'll move on down. Old business and unpending, new business. Sasha, can you take that first one for us?
Yes, thank you. This is a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation Warehouse to donate surplus items to Shady Grove School, and I move for its approval.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposition? All right, motion passes. Number 2, can we have Cody, can you take that one?
This is a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation Warehouse to donate surplus items to Greasy Community Organization, and I put that in the form of a motion.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposition? All right, motion passes. Item 3, Johnny, can you take that one?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation Warehouse to donate surplus items to Vans Lake Baptist Church. I move for its approval.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposition? All right, motion passes. Number 4 there, Kevin, can you take that one?
Yes, sir. This is an act amending Legislative Act Number 22-23, authorizing the comprehensive operating budget for fiscal year 2024, Mod 11, and declaring an emergency, and I put this in the form of a motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposition? All right, motion passes. All right, announcements. Next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, September 26th at 3 p.m. Do we have any other announcements? Speaker?
Dang it. Everybody, the packet we got has personal information on it. We need to give these to Shelley so she can shred them all. And who rooms with Doc? Go ahead and check and see if Doc left his on his desk, and if he did, just take it with yours, okay? All right, thank you.
I don't have an announcement, but I just want to thank you all for coming to the Hog Fry this past weekend, and I'm glad, y'all came and visited me, so thank you.
Any other announcements? All right, I need one more motion. All right, motion to adjourn. Second. We're adjourned.